The black waiter spoke German to the German customer in the middle of Manhattan's most expensive restaurant, and the silence that followed was so profound that even the noises from the kitchen seemed to cease for a few seconds. Cheligang Nadage, Frayne and Helen Andre said in perfect German to the elderly lady who was desperately trying to explain her severe allergy to seafood to the head waiter who was just shaking his head with growing impatience. The German woman, who moments before had seemed on the verge of tears from frustration, lit up with relief. Mein Gott endlich Janitor, Michigan versed it. She replied in German, quickly explaining her serious medical condition. Andre Santos, 28, never imagined that his 5 years of studying German at the public library in the early hours of the morning would reveal themselves so publicly at Le Bernardin, where he had been working for 3 years. Always relegated to the least important tables. He was the only black employee in an establishment that charged $300 per person and where most customers arrived by limousine. The manager, Mr. Morrison, a 50-year-old man with a gray mustache and a perpetually condescending attitude, watched the scene with narrowed eyes. He had hired Andre solely to meet the city's diversity quotas, always ensuring that he served only the tables in the back, far from the important customers. "Santos, get back to your section," Morrison growled, approaching. "Leave the VIP customers to those who know how to handle them properly." But the German lady, Frau Weber, gently held Andre's arm. "Dieser Jungemann is Ian," she said in German, explaining to her husband how Andre had saved her from a potentially fatal situation. "Er at Michigan perfect." At table 12, a discreet-looking woman watched the whole scene with growing interest. She wore simple but impeccably cut clothes, and her analytical eyes missed no detail of the interaction. Catherine Wells, billionaire and CEO of Wells International, had chosen to dine alone precisely to study people when they thought they were not being watched. Andre carefully translated all of the client's dietary restrictions to Morrison, suggesting alternative dishes from the menu that would be safe for her. His demeanor was professional and respectful, but there was something in his eyes, a sharp intelligence that contrasted sharply with the way Morrison treated him. "Thank her, and get back to your tables," Morrison said through gritted teeth, clearly irritated by the attention Andre was receiving. "And next time, don't stick your nose in where it doesn't belong." Frau Weber left a $100 tip specifically for Andre, whispering in German, "You saved my life today. Thank you for your kindness and intelligence." Catherine Wells finished her meal slowly, watching as Morrison continued to humiliate Andre for the rest of the evening, sending him to clean tables that were already clean, criticizing his posture and making sure everyone knew his place in that establishment. What Morrison didn't realize was that every insult, every unnecessary command, every look of contempt was being etched into the memory of someone who had the power to change lives with a simple phone call. Catherine wasn't just a casual observer. She was a silent predator on the hunt for wasted talent in places where you'd least expect to find it. When Andre passed her table for the last time, serving coffee with the same professional elegance despite the constant humiliation, she noticed something that no one else saw. In the calloused hands that held the tray with perfect stability, in the fluent German that had come out of nowhere, in the eyes that revealed an education far beyond what his current position suggested. If you are enjoying this story of overcoming adversity and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. What Catherine Wells saw in that humiliated waiter was about to shake the foundations of that pretentious restaurant in a way Morrison could never have imagined. In the days following the incident with Frau Weber, Andre's life at Le Bernardin became a meticulously orchestrated hell. Morrison had decided that this moment of protagonism needed to be corrected with subtle but constant punishments. "Santos, clean table 3 again," Morrison ordered for the 4th time that morning, even though he knew the table was already spotless. "And when you're done, go to the stockroom and organize the glasses. All of them, Andre obeyed silently, but Catherine Wells, who had returned to the restaurant 3 times that week, always asking for the same discreet table, noticed every humiliation. She watched as Morrison forced Andre to redo unnecessary tasks, as he purposely placed him in the worst sections, as he whispered venomous comments whenever he passed by him. "These kinds of people need to know their place," Morrison commented loudly enough for Andre to hear while talking to other waiters. "Give them a chance, and they think they can do anything." What Morrison didn't know was that Andre Santos wasn't just a waiter who spoke German. During his sleepless nights at the Brooklyn Public Library, while Morrison was probably sleeping in his suburban home, Andre had devoured not only language books but also hotel management treatises, international etiquette manuals, and studies on the psychology of luxury consumers. He had grown up watching his mother, Dona Rosa, work as a cleaning lady in corporate offices, coming home with stories about how executives treated employees like furniture. "Son," she used to say as she applied ointment to his bruised hands, "one day you'll be on the other side of that desk, and when that happens, remember what it's like to be down here." Catherine discovered more about Andre through methods that few billionaires would bother to use. A discreet conversation with the Brooklyn librarian revealed that a young black man had been studying religiously for years, always carrying stacks of books on hospitality, international business, and languages. The restaurant's night cleaning staff, for a generous tip, told how Andre arrived 2 hours before his shift to study in the break room, using borrowed books and taking notes in notebooks worn thin from use. "Do you know what his problem is, Santos?" Morrison said on a particularly busy Thursday, positioning himself strategically near the kitchen where other employees could hear. "You think that because you speak a different language, you're better than the others. But at the end of the day, you're still just another waiter." Andre stopped polishing the tray he was holding, his fingers imperceptibly squeezing the metal. For a moment, Catherine thought he would respond, that he would finally explode. But he simply took a deep breath and continued his work as if saving his energy for something bigger. "Yes, sir," Andre replied, his voice controlled but with a firmness that made Morrison frown uncomfortably. That same evening, Catherine witnessed the last straw. A Japanese tourist couple was clearly lost in the menu, gesturing nervously and trying to explain their dietary restrictions in broken English. The waiter assigned to them just shook his head, visibly annoyed. Andre approached discreetly. "Suma, masoni wasukashi nihongo ga dekimasu," he said in Japanese, causing instant relief in the couple. "Can I help you with the menu?" Morrison appeared like a hawk. "Santos, how many times do I have to repeat myself? Stay in your section." "Sir, they have shellfish allergies and couldn't explain." "I don't care," Morrison exploded loud, enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "You're here to serve food, not put on a language show. If you keep meddling where you shouldn't, you can look for another job." The awkward silence that followed was his. The Japanese customers looked mortified. The German couple from the week before had witnessed everything, and several other customers watched the scene with uncomfortable expressions. Andre lowered his eyes, clearly humiliated, but Catherine noticed something crucial. His fists were clenched, not in impotent rage, but like someone making a decision. "I'm sorry, sir," Andre said, his voice low but clear. "It won't happen again." But there was something in his tone, an almost imperceptible certainty, that made Catherine smile discreetly. It was the voice of someone who wasn't apologizing. He was making a promise that Morrison was too arrogant to understand. As Andre returned to his section, Catherine made a quick phone call. "James, I need a full report on Le Bernardine. Property, licenses, financial history, everything. And I want to know more about one specific employee." "Andre Santos." Each new humiliation only strengthened something inside him that his oppressors couldn't see, a quiet determination fueled by the very injustice they tried to impose. What Morrison didn't know was that every insult, every unnecessary command was being carefully filed away in the memory of someone who had spent years preparing for a moment that had not yet arrived. Catherine Wells's discreet investigation into Andre Santos revealed a story that deeply impressed her. The young man had lost his father at 16, taking on the sole responsibility of supporting his family. He worked during the day in construction, and at night in the restaurant, but still found time to study in the library until dawn. His academic records showed exceptional grades in a technical course in hotel management that he paid for with extreme sacrifice. "Miss Wells," said James, her personal assistant during a phone call, "I found something interesting. Andre Santos is not only fluent in German and Japanese, he speaks 6 languages and is pursuing an executive MBA through distance learning at an international university. He pays his tuition by working weekends as a freelance translator." Catherine smiled, watching Andre across the restaurant as Morrison forced him to clean the same table for the 5th time. "Keep investigating. I want to know everything about the family's financial situation, his future plans, and most importantly, I want a complete dossier on Morrison." Meanwhile, Andre was developing his own silent strategy. Each of Morrison's humiliations was carefully documented in a small notebook he kept in the staff closet. He wrote down dates, witnesses present, specific comments. It wasn't paranoia, it was methodology. During breaks, Andre began to observe the restaurant's patterns more closely. He noticed how Morrison treated customers differently based on their appearance, how he manipulated tips, how he made discriminatory comments when he thought no one was listening. More importantly, he realized he wasn't the only employee being mistreated. "Psst, Andre," whispered Carmen, a 40-year-old Latina waitress who had been working at Le Bernardin for 8 years. "Did you see how Morrison treated Isabella today? He said her accent was scaring customers." Isabella was a newly hired Italian waitress with experience in fine dining restaurants in Rome, but Morrison had assigned her exclusively to the cleaning section after a customer complimented her authentic Italian pronunciation when explaining the menu. "He's getting worse," commented David, an Asian-American waiter with a degree in gastronomy from the Culinary Institute. "Last week he took me off table 15 because the customer said I looked too Asian for a French restaurant." Andre realized that Morrison had created a subtle but systematic system of segregation. White employees served the best tables and received the best tips, while non-white employees were relegated to the worst sections, given the most degrading tasks, and constantly humiliated in front of colleagues and customers. "Have you ever thought about filing a formal complaint?" Andre asked. "During a break. With what money? What lawyer?" David laughed bitterly. "Morrison has connections throughout the industry. A complaint means being blacklisted. No quality restaurant would ever hire us again." It was Thursday when Catherine decided to take action. She had gathered enough information not only about Andre, but about Morrison's entire pattern of discriminatory behavior. Wearing a discreet suit, she approached Andre during his lunch break. "Mr. Santos," she said softly in German, "can we talk in private?" Andre looked up in surprise, immediately recognizing the woman he had observed so many times in the corner of the restaurant. "You speak German?" he replied in the same language, intrigued. "I speak 7 languages," Catherine smiled. "Just like you. My name is Catherine Wells, and I have a proposal that may interest you." They walked to a nearby cafe. Catherine got straight to the point. "I work in corporate acquisitions. I've been watching Le Bernardin for weeks, not as a customer, but as a potential investor. What I saw impressed me. Not the restaurant, but you." Andre frowned. "I don't understand. You speak 6 languages fluently, have a degree in hotel management, are pursuing an executive MBA, and most importantly, you have something that can't be taught in business school: dignity under pressure." Catherine paused. "I've also discovered that Morrison is systematically violating federal labor laws related to racial and ethnic discrimination. Andre's heart raced. Are you a lawyer? Not directly, but I have access to the best labor lawyers in the country, Catherine replied, sliding a card across the table. And I have something that Morrison would never expect: unlimited resources and patience for long fights. She explained that her company, Wells International, often acquired poorly managed establishments with untapped potential. Le Bernardine has a prime location, an established clientele, but toxic management that is destroying its reputation. It's exactly the kind of investment I'm interested in. Why are you telling me this? Andre asked, still processing the information. Because I need someone on the inside, someone who understands not only how the restaurant works, but the cultural nuances necessary to transform it into what it should be: a truly international establishment. Catherine leaned forward. And because I believe that people like Morrison need to face real consequences for their prejudices. Andre felt something ignite inside his chest. It wasn't just hope. It was the possibility of real justice. What would you need me to do? Continue working as usual. Document everything you've been documenting, but now with professional equipment. Catherine handed him a small device. Discrete digital recorder. Record all discriminatory interactions. Note down witnesses. In 2 weeks, we'll have enough evidence for devastating legal action. And then, Mr. Santos, you will become the general manager of the new Le Bernardine under new management with a salary commensurate with your actual qualifications, not Morrison's prejudices. Andre looked at the device in his hand. It was smaller than a coin, but it represented power, the power to finally fight back, not with anger, but with intelligence and justice. Morrison had no idea what he was about to face. Catherine smiled. Men like him think they can walk all over talented people with impunity. It's time to prove them wrong. When Andre returned to work that afternoon, Morrison immediately attacked him. Santos, where were you? Your lunch break was 30 minutes, not an hour. I'm sorry, sir, it won't happen again, Andre replied calmly, discreetly activating the recorder. That's right, it won't happen. And to make sure, you're staying late today to make up for it. No overtime. Morrison smiled maliciously. People like you need to learn that time is money. Andre just nodded, but his eyes shone with a new determination. Every cruel word Morrison uttered was being recorded. Every witness was being cataloged. Every humiliation was becoming evidence in a case that would destroy not only Morrison's career, but his entire power base built on prejudice and arrogance. Morrison continued his tirade, unaware that he was methodically digging his own professional grave. People like you should be grateful to have any job at all. Don't go around creating expectations above your station. As Morrison spoke, Andre noticed Catherine Wells entering the restaurant for dinner. She sat at the same discreet table, ordered wine, and opened a laptop. To any observer, she was just another executive working during a solitary meal. But Andre knew the truth. She was documenting everything, setting the stage for the biggest turnaround that establishment had ever witnessed. What Morrison didn't realize was that every insult, every unnecessary command, every display of prejudice was being meticulously recorded by someone who had not only the resources to destroy him, but the determination to do so in the most public and humiliating way possible. For 2 weeks, Andre meticulously documented every humiliation, every discriminatory comment, every labor violation Morrison committed. The small recorder captured everything: the whispered insults, the abusive orders, the prejudiced comments made when Morrison thought he was among friends. On Friday, the eve of the event that would change everything forever, Morrison was particularly cruel. A delegation of Japanese investors had reserved the restaurant's private room, and he wanted to make sure that only appropriate employees served them. Santos, you're staying in the kitchen today, Morrison ordered with a malicious smile. I don't want our special guests to feel uncomfortable. Andre nodded calmly, activating the recorder. Of course, sir. May I ask why? Because they're paying $15,000 for this reception, and clients of that caliber expect a certain standard. Morrison lowered his voice, but not enough. People like him can serve the regular tables, but this is serious business. What Morrison didn't know was that Catherine Wells was precisely among those Japanese investors. She had organized the entire reception as a pretext to be present at the moment of the final reveal. At 7 p.m., the hall was filled with elegantly dressed executives. Morrison circulated like a peacock, greeting guests in his rehearsed English, clearly trying to impress. Andre remained strategically positioned near the sound system, waiting for the signal. Catherine approached Morrison during dinner. Mr. Morrison, correct? I'm Catherine Wells from Wells International. I'd like to congratulate you on the excellence of your service. Morrison practically glowed with pride. Thank you, Ms. Wells. Here at Le Bernardin, we maintain the highest standards. We carefully select our staff to ensure that our customers receive only the best. Interesting. Catherine smiled coldly. And how exactly do you make this careful selection? Well, you have to have a keen eye, Morrison boasted, drinking more wine than he should have. Some employees just don't have the right profile for certain occasions. It's a matter of image, you know. Catherine nodded discreetly, signaling to Andre. I understand perfectly. In fact, how about we hear some examples of your management philosophy? Before Morrison could ask what that meant, his own voice echoed through the whole sound system, crystal clear, amplified so that all 50 guests could hear perfectly. People like him should be grateful to have any job. Don't go around creating expectations above your station. The room fell silent instantly. Morrison turned pale, recognizing his own voice. What? How? People like that need to know their place. Give him a chance and he thinks he can do anything. More recordings followed. 2 weeks of racist comments, abusive orders, systematic humiliation, all captured in high quality and now being played in front of the restaurant's most important customers. People like him should be grateful to have any job at all. Don't go around creating expectations above your station. Morrison looked desperately around the room, finding only expressions of horror and disgust on the faces of the guests. Some executives were already getting up, clearly offended. Others whispered indignantly among themselves. Catherine, Ms. Wells, this is a misunderstanding, Morrison stammered, breaking out in a cold sweat. Actually, Mr. Morrison, there is no misunderstanding. Catherine stood up, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. My full name is Catherine Wells, CEO of Wells International, and I am pleased to inform you that we have just acquired Le Bernardin. The shock on Morrison's face was absolute. Acquired? That's impossible. I'm the manager. No one informed me of any sale. Because you were just an employee, Mr. Morrison, an expendable employee who has just been dismissed. Catherine gestured to Andre, who approached with an envelope. Andre Santos is your replacement. He has the qualifications you never had: education, competence, and above all, human decency. In addition to the dismissal, there was a subpoena. Catherine had filed not only a labor lawsuit, but a lawsuit for moral damages on behalf of all the discriminated employees. You can't do this, Morrison exploded, completely losing his composure. I built my reputation here. I've been working in this industry for 20 years. Worked, Catherine corrected coldly. And your reputation? Well, everyone here has heard exactly what kind of reputation you've built. One of the guests, clearly a senior executive, approached Catherine. Ms. Wells, on behalf of the Manhattan Restaurant Association, I would like to apologize for our inadvertent complicity in this situation. This kind of behavior is unacceptable in our industry. Morrison looked around desperately, but all the faces around him reflected only contempt. His network of contacts, his friends in the industry, were all visibly distancing themselves. In a matter of minutes, he had lost not only his job, but all his professional credibility. "Andre," Catherine said, turning to the new manager, "would you like to say a few words to our guests?" Andre stood where Morrison had been moments before, but his presence was completely different. There was dignity in his posture, authority in his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new Le Bernardin, an establishment where respect and excellence go hand in hand, where we judge people by their character and competence, not by the color of their skin." He continued in fluent Japanese, greeting the Japanese guests in their native language, then in French, German, and Italian, demonstrating to everyone present not only his linguistic ability, but his true readiness to lead a highly international restaurant. The applause was spontaneous and warm. Morrison, still standing in the middle of the hall, looked like a ghost. His arrogance had been replaced by total and irreversible public humiliation. Catherine approached him one last time. "Mr. Morrison, security is waiting to escort you to the exit. Your personal belongings will be sent to you by mail." As Morrison was led out of the hall under the gaze of everyone who had witnessed his downfall, Andre remained in the center, not triumphant, but serene. He had won not through anger or revenge, but through preparation, dignity, and justice. The transformation was complete. The man who had spent years being humiliated by prejudice now occupied exactly the position his competence had always deserved. Morrison, for his part, discovered that arrogance and racism come at a very high price in the real world. But as the guests continued to congratulate Andre and the new management discovered the full extent of the changes Catherine had planned, one question hung in the air. Would it be possible to completely rebuild the toxic culture Morrison had created? Or were some scars too deep to heal completely? 6 months later, Le Bernardin had become the most respected restaurant in Manhattan, not only for its culinary excellence, but for the revolutionary culture of inclusion that Andre had implemented. Gastronomy. Today magazine dedicated a cover story entitled "The Rebirth of Le Bernardin: How a Former Waiter Turned Prejudice into Prosperity." Andre, now wearing an impeccable suit that he had chosen and paid for himself, walked through the main dining room, watching his diverse staff serve customers of dozens of different nationalities. Carmen had been promoted to dining room supervisor. Isabella was in charge of a new Italian wine section, and David was leading the Asian culinary exchange program. "Mr. Santos," said the maitre d', approaching respectfully, "the French delegation has arrived for the meeting about our expansion to Paris." Andre nodded, adjusting his shirt cuffs. In recent months, his partnership with Catherine Wells had resulted not only in the transformation of the restaurant, but in a chain of establishments that prioritized both excellence and authentic cultural diversity. Meanwhile, Morrison was discovering that arrogance and prejudice have lasting consequences in the real world. No quality restaurant in New York would hire him after the video of his public humiliation went viral on social media. His 20-year reputation had become synonymous with discrimination and managerial incompetence. "Please, Mr. Morrison," he pleaded, on the phone for the 10th time that day. "I know I have enough experience for the assistant manager position. I can start at half salary." The answer was always the same. "I'm sorry, but we don't have a position available for someone with your history." Back at Le Bernardin, Andre received a call that would change everything again. "Mr. Santos, this is Robert Chun from the United Nations Hospitality Committee. We would like to invite you to coordinate the official dinner for the next assembly. We need someone who truly understands cultural diplomacy." Catherine Wells watched from her usual table, now as an official partner in the business, while Andre simultaneously coordinated 3 different languages to solve a complex logistical problem. "Did you know it would be like this?" she asked her assistant. "From day one," he replied, "but even I didn't imagine that he would transform not just a restaurant, but an entire industry. Other establishments are copying Le Bernardin's model of cultural diversity." At the end of that day, Andre found a letter on his desk. It was from Frau Weber, the German lady whose moment of despair had triggered this whole transformation. "My dear Andre," it said in perfect German, "I read in the newspapers about your incredible journey. I want you to know that on that day, you not only helped me with my allergy, you showed me that kindness still exists in the world. Your mother must be very proud." Andre smiled, remembering Donor Rosa's prophetic words. "One day you'll be on the other side of that table." She was right. But there was something even better than simply being on the other side. He had rebuilt the entire table. Morrison, for his part, had learned the hard way that discrimination is not only morally wrong but professionally suicidal. His latest posts on LinkedIn, desperately trying to rebuild his image, received only comments reminding people of the viral video where his true personality was exposed. The transformation was complete. Andre had not only survived the humiliation, he had used every insult as fuel to build something his former oppressors could never have imagined. He had proven that true excellence has no color, no origin, no limits, beyond those we impose on ourselves. Morrison tried to destroy Andre but ended up destroying only himself. Andre learned that true revenge is not to repay the damage suffered, it is to achieve the success that his enemies could never imagine, turning every barrier into a springboard. If this story of overcoming adversity and justice touched your heart, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that sometimes our greatest injustices become our greatest impulses for greatness.